Hello and welcome back to art class. Today we're going to be making a picture that has to do with contour lines and something called a geode. We'll talk about the geode first. A geode is a kind of rock. Some of you probably even know what it is. They're usually kind of rough on the outside, kind of porous, which means it allows some water and other things to seep into the rock. And then when you crack it open, it's got all these beautiful colors and crystals on the inside. So we're going to be making our own version of that. Okay? We're going to need a few items. You're going to obviously need a piece of paper. A white piece of paper is best, but if you have just lined paper, that will be okay. You're going to want to have markers. That is going to be what works the best. You can't use colored pencils because it doesn't do the job for this. You might get away with using watercolors. It is possible to do this project with watercolors, but it's a little bit more difficult. If you have watercolored pencils, in the specific, that's watercolor pencils, that is something you probably could do as well with this project. So there are a couple of options, but your best bet is markers. And you're going to want to pick, have a Sharpie as well. You're going to want a pencil. You're going to want to have water and a brush. Okay? And you're going to basically choose three colors. Three colors that work really well together or close to each other on the color wheel. So in this particular example, red violet, which is called raspberry, violet, and blue violet, which is called royal purple for the Crayolas. Okay, there are three colors in a row on the color wheel. Another good set is the three greens here. Turquoise, which is a blue-green, green, and then yellow-green, which is called iguana green. You could do something like red, violet, pink, and red. That would work. I'm going to turn some of these over so I can see what color they are. Another one that would work really well is probably sandy tan, yellow, and orange. Okay? Or you could do orange, red, or this tiger orange and red. Or you could probably do tiger orange, raspberry, and red. So you get these three. There's lots of combinations you could do. I am going to pick, I had my colors. Where did it go? I'm going to need that color, raspberry. So I'm going to pick these three colors. Okay. First up, you're going to draw the outside of your geode. Your geode needs to be about as big as your hand. Okay, it's not tracing your hand, but it's about as big as your hand. It's going to take up a lot of space on your paper, and it's just a zigzaggy line. We don't want to go crazy all over the place. We don't want that. That. Nothing overly complicated. And realistically, that's about all you need your pencil for. Then Sharpie it. This is going to be the outside of your geode. Okay, like that. And keep your Sharpie kind of close because you will need it a little bit later. And then we're going to start with our colors. I usually like to go pretty much in order of the way the color wheel goes. So I could start either with the blue purple or the red purple. That's usually how I go. And this first one is really easy. You want to use a thick marker, and you're just going to trace your line on the inside. This is what we call a contour line, where you're just following exactly what is there. And if notice, I'm going to go back and make sure it's really dark and thick. The darker and thicker you can get that color, the better off you are with this particular project. So it will eat up your marker a bit to do this project. Next one I'm going to do is violet for me, and I'm going to leave a little bit of space between the two. But again, I'm going to do another contour line, which is just basically following the exact shape of of what was already there. So we're just following the shape. Like that. Then I'm going to do my third color. Now, one problem with the marker is you got to be careful that you don't get it on your hand, so just watch where you're placing your wrist. Once you have your set, then you can kind of go in any order that you want. Just make sure it's nice and thick and dark. So it's going to eat up your marker, so you may have to trace twice in the same spot or kind of color. That's perfect. I'm gonna make this one extra thick. This is going to be the actual center of my geode. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows here. So somewhere between 5 and 7 probably is where you're going to be able to fit neatly, depending on your spacing. And then you're going to need a center of your geode. You can do what I did where it's 2 colors, or it could be just 1 color. Then you're going to want your marker as well. And you're going to want to outline that in Sharpie. Okay, next is where the water and the brush come in. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to add water to this. Make sure you're not going past your Sharpie line. And we're just adding water and just neatly painting water over the top. And it's just going to sit and absorb into the marker, and it's going to cause a bleed effect with the marker. That's why we wanted it to be so dark, is because the darker the color, the more likely it is to bleed in an interesting way. Unfortunately, it will bleed a little bit outside of the Sharpie, but that's pretty normal, so don't be upset if it bleeds a little bit outside of the Sharpie marker. The Sharpie marker itself will not bleed because it is not a water-based marker. It is actually an alcohol-based marker. It's one of the reasons why Sharpies are more expensive than Crayola markers, is because they're made differently. Okay, So now my picture has been painted, and I'm going to let it sit. The longer it sits and can slowly dry, the more the marker will spread out and kind of mix and create more of the geode look. So this is where we're going to leave it for today. I want you to let it dry for about 15 minutes before you snap your photo, because I kind of want to see how it's turning out as the drying process has happened a bit. Okay? So I need you to take a photo, upload that once it's dried out a bit, and then put it to Google Classroom. We will wrap this up next week, and I will see you next week.